So Jag will walk through her involvement in supporting the BCS, in promoting early careers within the IT and the digital industry. And she's going to look at the challenges and the opportunities as well, and offer some advice. And I'm sure we can all get that and probably use that in our sort of daily lives and going forward. So just about Jag Suhal, Jag is an experienced senior IT business relationship manager with a demonstrated history of working in financial services, premium automotive and facilities support services, both at a strategic and a tactical level. An excellent record of working as a trusted partner with executive stakeholders as well. So I am going to now hand you over to Jag, and we want to try and make this very much interactive. So please use the chat facility here to put any questions you want so that we can make it as interactive as possible. Right, thank you, and over to you, Jag. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Altaf, and thank you for the opportunity, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for taking time out this sort of late afternoon as well to accommodate this talk. And as Altaf says, we've got plenty of time to just sort of take in the information and make it conversational. So we'd urge you to use the chat feature to share any thoughts, feedback, or questions that you've got. So Altaf's gone into my role, but I seem to have another very important role, which is BCS and early careers, and a real champion for it as well. So I've been designated the title as the early careers ambassador for the BCS. So I'm honoured for that, and I think it's a lot to do with the voluntary work that I've been doing. So really my vocation is IT business relationship management. However, I've taken an active interest in putting together, so the last 2 years I did 8 talks on early careers called Real IT Bites Early Career Professional Series. That's on YouTube at the BCS members YouTube channel. And really essentially the purpose was to go less into the technology side of things, but really the people, what makes IT work, what's important. And that's relationships and all the other sort of human skills that contribute to the successful outcomes of what we do in technology. So it's more around storytelling, and my guest speakers are people that I've either worked with or I've met during lockdown. But everyone, including myself on those talks, has committed to being contactable by anyone who needs that kind of early career steer or advice. So yet again, that's another resource that's available. So whether you watch the talks today or 3 months' time, know that anyone on that talk that kind of resonates with you, they are contactable, and everyone's at different stages of their career as well. So worth bearing that in mind. I'd also suggest, add us on LinkedIn as well and make us part of your network as well. That's more than welcome. So the talks then led on to the establishment of the BCS of an Early Careers Executive Committee. So I joined the committee last September as the Early Careers Liaison Officer. So that really helped take my passion from doing the talks of what was of interest to me in those talks, which is around my role, business relationship management, other roles that exist out there, so sort of the project management office and really understanding those roles. Then I've sort of talked to recruiters as well in terms of recruiter tips and things like that, success stories, a bit of myth busting, and really kind of unlocking what's the reality of IT, and people have the assumption that it's sort of very much you're stuck to your desk all day, or it's just help desk. Some people have that kind of perceived perception. So it was just debunking a lot of things around there. And then my last talk's around purpose. So actually, why? What is your why? What is your reason? And that sort of drives your passion and your purpose going forwards as well. So that's been really, really good. But the board, the executive role, has allowed me and the committee to have it's sort of a point of view that goes up to the board of trustees as well. So for the appointment of that committee role, my CV, my experience went to the board of trustees to be kind of approved for that position. And that's been huge for my personal and professional development, because that's as close to as a non-executive director role that I would be holding on to right now. And my future is to become an ed as I continue in my career. And so this role's now given me that strategic view and understanding the BCS's strategic aims as well. So I took it upon myself to then do some discovery work. So the liaison officer role really talked about the challenges in academia and then the challenges in the organisations. And I just thought, we're missing a big piece here, and that's the recruiter and hiring industry. What are they really feeling, seeing and experiencing? So I did 4 recruiter workshops with recruiters of small, medium and large sort of enterprises, and just a listening exercise to say, what does it really feel like out there? That insight's been really beneficial, and that was reported up as well, which we can go into later. But before I carry on, I wanted to start with what is early careers. So, and everyone has a view, and I'd love to know in the chat, if someone said, I'm starting an early career, what does that really mean? From my kind of standpoint, which kind of aligns to the BCS, is an early career can start at any point in your journey. So I think there's the assumption that early careers is just for the university type cohort. That's your early career. Even then, that used to be the terminology was young professionals. That's now changing, and the BCS are changing the standpoint sort of on that, and that kind of view that it's a certain age bracket that we invest in and kickstart early careers. Actually, early careers is at any point in any lifetime. So I suppose my example would be when I moved from second line help desk into a business systems analyst role, that was me embarking on an early career with new systems, new processes, new governance. That's that feeling to know when you've moved into a new role and it's new people, processes, new technology, and I said like new governance, that's new, and that's your early career. So that can start at any point in time. Also, it's sort of switching careers as well. So I work at NFU Mutual as a business relationship manager. We've grown our team. We've had an additional sort of 8 or 9 people join. 8 of those have come from outside of IT. So we did, advertise the roles, and it's refreshing to see that from an internal point of view, how healthy the culture is here in terms of early careers, and that people feel confident to switch careers as well. So not only do we see a high number within IT switching careers, and we have a program called Switch IT, but we now have broadened that. So people from procurement can join IT and then perhaps go back to procurement. But in our case, our team's grown, and these are people that have worked in contact centres for our organisation, in claims, and various roles as well. So it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time for our team, and the voluntary work that I do, which is really focused on people and development, means that I get to really support them through with sort of skills development, understanding what our vocation is, and supporting them through their development too. So that's kind of my stand on what early careers is. And I suppose going on, to the next sort of level of that is entry paths as well. So it can be that it's an internal move for you. So your early career starts within an internal move in an organisation. It could be that you as part of the result of furlough, that you've had to leave your vocation, or as we found, so the unfortunate effect of a furlough is that you don't have the role that you previously had, whether that be in hospitality or engineering or any of the other sectors that are really struggling right now. And that, I think that's where we sort of need to appreciate that those skills that those people have can be transferable to IT. So that's one of my key messages that I really try to get out there is how can we get that light bulb to go off for people to say that the vocation that you are in, you've got skills and abilities coming out of that can be transferred into our industry. And when you look at the market, our tech sector is actually booming. It's the highest kind of growth sector that we have at the moment, given these difficult times. So I've got some tips around that. If you know anybody who could fall into that sort of pool, I've got some tips for that. So just remind me if I don't say them later. And also, not just furlough, but I think the last 2 years have said, it's really kind of resonated with people on, is this what I really want to do? Is this what I really want to carry on doing? And that's not only felt, I know, in IT, but in other areas, in other industries, which has led to what was called the Great Resignation. And that was around really assessing work-life balance and actual value in the work that we do. So that's been huge. That's another huge, number of people that have sort of left, wanting to leave their vocation behind in the pursuit of something else. So the way I thought about it, so there's people that have sort of done the Great Resignation, as they call it, within IT, and perhaps didn't think the pathway was right for IT and are now moving into wanting to, pursue their passion for music or photography or healthcare. Well, actually, I think there will be people out there who've worked in other industries who've not made that link to think, actually, I've got some really sound sort of analytical skills, commercial acumen, project management, or just administration skills as well, to really factor that there are jobs going live at the moment and waiting on boards, waiting to be filled for people like that. So it's important, I think, for us on the call, for anyone that's in the industry, to really publicise and popularise IT. And again, the way I like to do it, my stance is technology. And if I were to continue to talk about technology in its deeper sense, to talk about hybrid clouds and whatever else is sort of going on right now, my understanding and my belief is that can turn people away, because the immediate reaction is that I'm not technical enough. Whereas what I want to do is to say your early career can start and you don't have to be technical. I think that's the biggest myth as well. So you can learn or absorb as much as you need to know sort of more technically. But it's having that mindset and that passion to say, actually, this is a role that I really feel like I can apply myself to. The other point was around entry paths as well, is degree. So nothing against degrees and a degree path for people, but another consideration for people is don't let not having a degree hold you back. For whatever reason, you haven't pursued a degree or have the finances to support an IT degree. There are other sort of paths to learning available to you. So definitely dedicated to more the I suppose the younger audience is T-levels. So T-levels are new. T-levels are government backed, and there are a catalogue of T-levels available, which are just as high a standing, if not equal to sort of the A-levels that you have. And I think they're a great starting point as well for someone who's got an interest in starting that sort of their technical learning as well. So that's definitely one to explore. And they are new. So the cohort that are now completing their T-levels this year, they've been the first round really who've sort of adopted to T-levels and are really taking that learning forward. But I would say they're not widely known. So I think education on T-levels is really important. But definitely for anyone out there who's got, sons, daughters, or anyone that's, unclear on where to start and doesn't really sort of fancy the degree path, it's definitely worth sort of sharing the knowledge around the resources that are available on the BCS website and the government website on T levels as well. And the other sort of much more popular, actually, much more widely known by recruiters, are boot camps. So boot camps are, again, you have to go on application, and there'll be government funding available for boot camps as well. But these are, relatively sort of concise courses. So I suppose you've got to have an idea of what area or kind of expertise you would want to go into. But boot camps are great. They give you that understanding of whatever it could be, networking, cyber, sort of more technically sort of centric as well. But that's a great start, because within a boot camp you can gain that experience as well. So that's really handy. And I think that's the key, linking boot camps versus sometimes degrees. If a degree person misses out on any kind of hands-on experience, then in the market that we're in the fast-paced market that we're in, that experience that individual has obtained is, it does make you stand out. So boot camp or e-learning or self-learning, and actually demonstrating that you've self-learned and actually an application of it, is really powerful in the industry. So I'd put that, on the top of anyone's CV if they've actually gone and embarked on a boot camp or any type of learning and then demonstrating an application of it. I think that's really speaks volumes about your dedication to and your passion to your vocation. But then at the same time, that's where I think people who are doing the degree ears need to be a bit pricked up to this, to say, actually, I do need experience at the same time. And my other tip for gaining experience, if you do sort of go into more of a developer route, is we are finding in the industry, 2 out of 3 developers are self-learning all the time and self-taught. And one area where you can definitely demonstrate your skills is to join hackathons as well. So they're running all the time, and it can help you hone your skills, be part of that community, and help build those links. And then to have that on your CV as well, I think that's brilliant, because that shows that you've been really proactive. And then lastly, apprenticeships. So apprenticeships' biggest myth is that was only aimed at maybe a younger cohort as well, and that's not the case. Many apprenticeships can be taken on at any stage, any age, and any stage as well, and then can be adopted by organisations to support their existing staff, to encourage new people to join, and that's the key for me. Is the apprenticeships are so nimble, and again allow you to demonstrate your abilities on the job. And when you look at some of the BCS sort of stories that people have done on the apprenticeships, really positive stories to help encourage others into trying and applying for those as well. So I think they're really, really good options. The boot camps and apprenticeships are great options out there. And I think more of an education piece needs to happen within organisations as well, to really leverage the offering there. Not just that they are government backed, so there's financial support, but I think just for the greater good of society as well. Because if you don't nurture kind of talent in that way, we will, I do believe, if the data stacks up, we'll be hitting some skills shortages within 5 years, especially in the digital era, and especially as we're seeing a massive growth in digitisation of businesses and organisations as well. So I do seem to be talking quite a lot. I just wondered if there was any questions or anything else I need to elaborate further on. Altaf, has there been any activity?
Not at the moment, but however, just to bring on the subject of early careers and trying to expand that, Jack, is if I'm looking to move my job or my role, support can I get, and where do I start?
Yeah, so I would say in terms of support, yeah, there are various avenues. I think one avenue is always friends and family. I think that's a really safe place to start. If you've got any questions or thoughts around, and it can start from if you're generally just not happy in your current role, you know, and you want to get a feeler for advice. Sometimes friends and family can be a good start. Other areas are, and this is where I think my 3 steps came in when I thought about everything I've absorbed so far, speaking to a number of recruiters, speaking to hiring managers, and thinking about how you can get started, which, you know, I think just costs you a bit of time and not money. It's to start sometimes local, start with your local support services. There are companies running boot camps locally. There are organisations local to your area. There's the recruiters local to your area as well, that you probably walk past and would never make the connection that you should probably walk in and have a look at some, you know, IT and opportunities in IT and tech and digital. They are there, and find a recruiter that you can actually go and visit. I think that face-to-face kind of interaction with someone is important. And when you go to those local areas, and BCS is a great avenue as well when you've got local branches. bcs@groups.uk is a great way to start, just emailing to say if you do need some help and get started as well. But what I find with the recruiter is that dedicated expertise in actually assisting with your CV. So my first point is to start local. Second thing is ask the question. Ask that I want to start a career in IT, but I need help to represent my transferable skills. And you want to, you know, get a yes, get a recruiter that's actually going to willing to sit down and go through that process with you. I think that's huge, and actually that's, you know, that's something that recruiters are willing to do. And I think that's another thing that people, you know, misconception. And, you know, speaking to people outside of the recruitment market, you know, the people have good and bad experiences. So I think if you find a recruiter that's actually willing to do that, you're in good stead. You know, you can establish that trust to go through your experience and your CV. Then I want to be part of that. So your step 3 is, like I said, on the early career series, that all the professionals on my talks absolutely committed to being contactable. And like I said, you've got a BCS network. So those are the 3 steps. And it's around people, isn't it? It's around getting support from people to get you started. And, you know, at this point, I'd say that I haven't asked for BCS membership, haven't asked for like any fees involved. I've literally said, you could probably spend 20 minutes rather than social media, you know, starting to Google local resources, picking up the phone and asking the question, and you really don't have much to lose. And it's a very novel and different way of doing things, I have to say, rather than going through the generic kind of like read and total jobs route.
Yes.
And however, so keeping it out of finances, but the BCS membership itself, what I would say the advantage of that membership is when you're not in a role. So when you're not in a role at an organisation, because people say to me, networking is so important, and I can't fathom networking if I wasn't in an organisation. So if I worked at Microsoft, I know that my fellow peers now become part of my network and I can start networking. But when you're still at the early stages of actually trying to secure your role, who is your network? So that's really difficult. So I would say that, you know, subscribing to the BCS is like joining a community, a company, a community of people. So that fee is giving you the ability to hone, to network, so hone your networking skills and reach out to people who, again, are part and parcel of that community that are there willing to support as well. So that's kind of the link that I made when I've seen so many posts about network. And I think if you haven't got that starting point and you're a bit apprehensive and you're a bit unsure, how would you start networking? Who would you network with?
It can be daunting as well, right?
It's really daunting indeed. So I'm talking about people who haven't had a degree path, haven't perhaps have sort of left that vocation like through furlough or anything like that, or are in education and are still only within that kind of bubble. So the BCS, if you introduce the BCS into your bubble, you're actually introducing yourself to professionals as you would be in an organisation. So I know if I needed some more kind of advice on if I want to pursue a career in enterprise architecture, if I wasn't working at NFU Mutual, I know that my BCS fellows and people there and the specialist interest groups and my local groups, I could ask the question. And at no point do I take my career for granted. And if I do have to make a switch, or if I do decide that business relationship management, I've done it for a period of time, I want to have a change, I know that my realistic view is that I would definitely reach out to my community that I have available to me. So once you join the BCS, don't be silent. That's my other thing as well. Make use of the resources. There's resources available that you can use in your own time, but be vocal. There's a discussion board, there's your local branches, there's ways to volunteer and supporting someone with an event. So I'm not putting any pressure on you to talk at an event, but if you can actually go along and say, I'm happy to support in any way I can, send out the feedback forms, collate the feedback, anything like that, you're helping and you're getting to know people at the same time.
Thank you. So we've got Monica is asking a question here. What would you do if you want to change of career from, let's say, a test manager to a project manager? What would you advise?
Thank you, Monica, for that question. So there are different options. I think when you're in organisation, like I said, it's quite organic and it can happen in an organisation. So it's very real. So if that's very real for you, then it's in your organisation. I would say reach out to that department to demonstrate your interest. Keep a lookout for internal vacancy positions as well, where they might be seeking that kind of project manager role, and don't be adverse to actually saying I just want to shadow at this stage, just to help solidify that is actually the pathway that you want to make. And given your vocation within testing or IT, then that you'll get to know what project managers that you kind of work with or know that you'd probably want to shadow in any way as well. So that's always one way to start. There's lots of resources available on Eventbrite that the BCS push out. So you could go down the BCS Eventbrite route and look for kind of more materials on project management as well. Outside of BCS, Eventbrite has a lot of events and discussions where you can meet people and talk about starting your career in project management as well. So, but I would say make it known. If there's any kind of forum where you can make it known that you just want to have some talks or discussion on, I am seeking a role in project management, is start those conversations at a one-to-one. It's I think much safer when you have it in a one-to-one kind of context. And then obviously if you're in vocation, if you get to shadowing's huge. I think, I've got a new starter in my team who's joined, and I've sort of said to them at this point in time, my diary becomes your diary. So you've not done this role before. I want you to start shadowing and learning that way. I'm not taking on full responsibilities at this stage with business sponsors or sort of my stakeholders, but really kind of then just seeing how our governance works, how the day-to-day, how it all works and how it all hangs together. So I hope that helps, Monica. If you want me to elaborate further, or if you want to share more about what the situation is, I'm happy to talk further about it.
Sorry, I mute myself there. One more there, Jack. I'm not happy in my job. What do I do? How do I discover what I should do next in terms of goal? How do I discover that? You know what I mean? I'd like to sort of when probably speak to someone and say, I've done this and that and all that type of thing. Can you give me something? Can you give me a rope to, uh,
Yeah.
to
So
try and
to
hold
somebody
something?
who's unsure what their career path needs to be, yeah, no, that is an interesting one. So I've had that. I kind of had this like tunnel vision of becoming a head of IT, becoming CIO. That was sort of my plan. But again, I think lockdown sort of changed my perspective slightly. Like, what is the rush? Like, really seriously, Jack, what is the rush? Slow down and look at other areas that are available. So the spectrum of IT roles is just a catalogue. It's just so broad. And what helped me was speaking to someone who was in my network that is a CIO. But when I used to sort of know of him or work with him, he was head of service delivery, and we've sort of kept in touch. And that conversation, I didn't have time or capacity for dedicated mentoring personally for myself, but it was just, I just want to run it past you. This is where I am right now. This is what my career looks like. Give me some sort of advice. So hopefully you've got someone in your network that can give you that kind of sounding board to say, this is where I am. This is what my likes and dislikes are. This is what my strengths are. This is where I think I want to head to. And that was really good because it opened up some opportunities for me in terms of where I could go in my career. And so it'd be interesting to have that conversation if you can't have that opportunity. Even if you want to get just half an hour in my diary, I'm happy to do that. If you connect with me on LinkedIn and we can talk about that, we talk about your strengths, talk about what excites you, what motivates you, and then link that into, well, this is what some outcomes could look like. This is, we're all different characters. We've there's a website called 16personalities.com. It's free, and it's linked to Myers-Briggs, so it gives you what your type is. So it's sort of introvert, extrovert, you're a details person or you're a high level person, strategic. That's really insightful and it's free. So I would encourage people just to go on there and find out, what kind of persona you've got. And that can help you actually say, I'm actually more of a details person. I need to be looking at this sort of role, which gets me stuck into sort of dedicated projects and dedicated detail as well. But like I said, that talk with the CIO was really useful. What I've taken from that is took all the notes that he made, took all the notes that I made, and converted it into a personal development plan to say that this is what I can probably achieve or test and learn in my career. This is what I can do for my learning outside of my role as well. So make sure you kind of have a balance of what you feel like you could do to make strides to where you want to get to inside your role, and then think about how you could supplement that sort of outside of your role as well. But yeah, do open up the conversation. Don't feel frustrated for too long. It's really unhealthy and it can really, be detrimental to your well-being ultimately. If you're not happy in a role, you need to sort of talk up about it. And like I said, the recruiters that I've been speaking to, they're fantastic. They're actually happy and welcome the conversation, because there might be obviously a job at the end of it for you, and a successful kind of candidate submission for them, for their organizations that they partner with as well.
What was that website again you mentioned? 16?
Yeah, 16personalities.com.
16personalities.com.
Yeah.
You touched a little bit on mentoring, because I know BCS also offer a good mentoring scheme, don't they? Okay.
Yeah, that's right. That's another advantage. Like I said, if you're not in role at the moment, every organization that I've worked with has a mentoring arm to it. But if you're not in a vocation and that isn't an option to you, again, what the membership can provide you is access to people who are on available for mentoring. So you become the mentee, they will mentor you, what I call it is when I'm looking for a mentor, which I did a few years ago, I had sort of 5 or 6 people presented to me in terms of names that I could go to. And I literally was like speed dating. I was just meeting them all for coffees, for chats. And what was important to me was, and the feedback I had was like, they really felt like they were interviewed, and these are like senior people, but I was interviewing them because it mattered to me. So my advice around mentoring is find someone that does resonate, that conversation is easy, you feel like you can actually share whatever you need to share personally, professionally to them, to allow you to get that best mentoring experience. Because in a mentor relationship, you just don't want to hold back. You want to have someone that you can be honest with, open with, and in return you'll get an impartial view, a non-judgmental view, and an honest view as well, in terms of how they can support and how they can guide you as well. There's recruitment bodies that offer mentoring as well. So Reed do a huge program for more sort of mentoring for women in technology as well. So Kevin Datey, who runs that, is contactable if you want to get onto the Reed program to be menteed as well.
Thank you. You also mentioned, if you can probably, I think we can put this on the website afterwards, is you had mentioned some people who are contactable at BCS, that like yourself can be contactable anytime. So I guess if you can get those names, we can give it to all the attendees in this talk and distribute that as well.
Yeah, I think for the attendees, today something's brought you to this call, so it's just nice to just obviously in the chat, if you could just share sort of what's brought you here today, what else are you sort of in terms of outcomes from today, what else would you like to hear or learn about. If you want to come on camera as well, please sort of message Altaf if you can, and sort of come and we can have a discussion that way as well. So totally sort of fluid to the format for today. My other point was going to be the strategic importance of this. I've sort of touched around the data, and we will find a skills gap, skills shortage in our industry. We have a workforce that, if you think about the workforce that has been here for as long as IT's existed, so that's 40 years, these individuals now are rightly entitled to retire. So we will see a huge sort of decrease in our workforce if you think about the numbers of people that are expected to retire. And I knew this headline sort of 4 years ago, the rate. 4 years on, it's the reality is there. I've seen huge numbers of people in my network who are now sort of leaving the industry to seek a sort of a happy retirement now. And technology has changed along the way as well. So the technology that they were supporting, 30 years ago, isn't ideally sort of what is in industry today. But you will be surprised, there are some organizations that are still running on hefty sort of mainframe technology and things like that as well. But those skills just do not exist anymore. So we have to combat that shortage. So when we talk about the strategic importance of this, it's clear to me that it's very strategic, of strategic importance to government, to our economy, to BCS and various other bodies, RIT Tech and all these other training bodies and training partners that support the BCS, that are hooked into the BCS, that are leveraging a co-partnership with the BCS as well. And strategy to me doesn't mean it's just this idyllic view that lives sort of, in people's minds far, far away. Or doesn't that look good if that was, IT was a reflection of society and we've got fully resourced and things like that. It's not in the distant. We can actually all contribute and make strides to make it happen quicker and sooner. So that's why some of my sort of proactiveness comes from, because I know, you know, working as a full-time in vocation and then doing all of this on sort of top of that, which I'm thankful that my organisation allow me to do. But if it does set off light bulbs for people, if it does make people make that step, it's a huge contributing factor to the strategy. So my steps feel quite tactical to me, but if they help achieve for the greater good for society, then that's really important. And I'm not stopping sort of here. I've got ideas of what I want to do and implement in my role as the ambassador and liaison officer for the second half of this year. Almost, I do like treat it like another job. Like, I've got objectives set for the rest of this year. I will be next year, you know, writing letters to organisations to say that I feel like, you know, there needs to be more done. You know, you need to increase your ratio of apprenticeships, or if you're a really large organisation, what are you doing to support perhaps the small and medium enterprises in your again regional community to make sure that they get talent as well? I think it's really, what I see is that, you know, the cream of the crop, or whatever they want to describe it, you know, the Googles of the world tend to suck up all the talent and then leave very little for the other areas as well. Every organisation, every industry needs its fair share of talent and resource and workforce. So the more that we can encourage and cross-fertilise people from other industries into tech is really important. And that comes from, you know, people who are professionals, people of industry need to be really kind of giving back in that sense, and increasing the numbers of the workforce as well. So, and then strategy becomes reality. Strategy will really quickly become reality. But we just can't expect government to do everything. We just can't expect BCS. And, you know, when you think about BCS, we take away 60,000 volunteers, you're left with a head office function. That's a huge ask to ask the permanent members of the BCS to go do. Actually, we're a force, you know, we have a voice, 50,000 plus of us, you know, and if your members here today, you know, there's so much to be done. And if you want me to share more ideas, or you do want to get involved with evangelizing early careers, and I'm happy to have that conversation with other areas, other individuals and other groups as well.
Thanks, Jag. If you can just answer a few questions so we've got Hector. He says, my area of interest and career aspirations would be business analysis and engagement / engagement. I'm currently involved on IT side on a 24/7 batch operation, alerting and monitoring. What would best advice be route to take away from the current role to a desired more business related role?
Yeah. Hector, I don't know if you want to come on camera, you want to discuss it a bit more sort of more in depth than that.
Hector, I can unmute you. Yeah, he's unmuted. Hector?
Hi, Hector.
Right. Okay, you can hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Yes, thank you.
All right. All right, so essentially I've got like a passion for more business engagement, and some of the work I do, I've worked in like operations for a good 20 years plus, maybe a little bit longer. And the important thing to us is obviously we're in the background, like making certain that when the businesses start first thing in the morning, everything's where it should be. So we hardly get recognised in that way, but we're not there to be recognised. We're there to make certain that things are where they should be and everything's green when it should be. My desire for the last few years is to get more involved with on the business side or engagement, and rather than say what I'm doing at the moment. I went on like a business analyst apprenticeship a few years ago, but with that analysis, it turned out more to be, you almost had to be in the role for a certain period in order to actually get anything out of it, rather than the word apprenticeship saying you're supposed to be showing us how to get from here to B. So, so in a way, it was useful, but it was almost like it didn't have the desired effect. So it might have actually, no, it didn't really put me back, but the fact is that it moved me forward, and I got a better idea what I want to do. So in a way, I'm just reaching out and saying, what would be your advice to get from where I'm now to say away from the backroom scenes, on the business side. You understand where I'm coming from?
I do, yeah, I do. So yeah, it sort of goes, I suppose there's some elements to your role that are, you know, if you could pick out areas where you've had to sort of problem solve, or something's gone wrong and you've had to go and sort of, you know, drive a defect forward. There's some, I think it's how you articulate what you do sometimes. And so when I was at second line help desk and I applied for a role at Jaguar Land Rover as a business analyst, I had to articulate what I've been doing in my day-to-day job, which, exactly as you just said, you know, ticket flies up, got to close down the ticket quickly, you know, it's an incident, bring it back and check I used to do a lot of the checking the batches and things like that. But there's elements of what you do sometimes that you can transfer into that role. So what I did was I looked at job descriptions for business systems analyst, and so not in the process of applying, but looking at the language that was being used. And every, you know, interview, every interview, they're going to ask you questions based on the job description. So give you an example of, you know, making a significant change, give me an example of, you know, tactical change or whatever it is, but the clues are usually in the job description. So I would just say have a look at them and start to circle those key areas, because what the clues will be in the job description, what the strengths are, what the competencies are that they're looking for. And then you either then map what you've done, if you reflect on what you've done in your career, you can start to map and start to, you know, brainstorm. I've got an example of that. I've got an example where I drove some efficiencies. I've got an example where I had a difficult customer, you know, and I brought them back to, like, they were really red. I was like, brought them back to green and made them happy and things like that. You know, your job is never as monotonous as you think. When you actually reflect on your career, you do come across scenarios. Actually, yeah, I did have to really kind of like tackle this in a slightly different way. And what did I kind of learn? And you go back into what you've learned from it. So I'd say the clues are always there in the job description. Pluck out what you can and map what you can in that regard. Then start to surface, are there opportunities where you are right now? You know, get a realistic look to say, am I seeing anything like this on a jobs board, or is there a BA forum at your organisation that you could say, I'm interested in sort of getting to know the chair of the BA forum, or I'd like to see, you know.
Yeah, I think you're what you're saying there is in a way music to my ears, because it's like, obviously we have calls when the service desk are off site, and we get calls, and I'm not really into. I always emphasize. You know what? I almost look and say, if I was at the other end of the phone, what do I want to hear? I'm not really interested in our pretty little pictures we've got on the screen. I just want to know, what can you do to basically get this system back up? What can you do to move it forward? What can you do to if you've realised there's something that's failing, what can you do to help so that thing doesn't happen again? And so, yeah, and obviously unlike the apprenticeship, I've got more involved with actually business analysts and senior analysts actually at the company that I'm at, and we're doing like a it's not really it's like not a book club, but it's like Udemy and LinkedIn courses on specific things, and then we meet say every month and say, all right, what did we think about this specific course? So I can see a better pathway than I had say a year ago, and what he says it is the right direction. So in a way, yeah, I think it's a matter of, I always say this thing about if you get on the train, you've got to know what station you're going to get off. Otherwise, you could end up anywhere.
Yeah.
So I think that's been very useful, and I think sometimes I just need to see certain things through rather than just almost like leaving it finished. So thanks a lot for that.
Yeah, thank you, Hector. And I think my other point was going to be, if you've got that systems mindset, like you said, then a systems business analyst role, rather than a true kind of BA, they exist where you're actually surfacing change that has to happen to a system. So my first role as systems BA was dealing with warranty systems. And then it kind of broadened outside of that. And then, and I just think every job you do change. So if you can start to demonstrate qualities that you're, like I said, you can surface what a BA expectations of a BA is in your current role, then that helps as well. So I wasn't, my career journey went from being a business relationship manager to managing a team of business relationship managers because I was demonstrating leadership qualities in my role. And then the leaders could see actually she's growing into being a leader, then moving into leading a team while I was at Carillion. And then that was sort of pseudo leadership. And then when I then had the skills of actually just managing sort of people and tasks, not really their development at that stage, but then the role came in financial services, where as a true team leader, I'd already demonstrated within my current pay grade, my current role, that I was being able to lead myself and lead others, for me to then have the a sensible interview with the right kind of experience and examples to become that leader role as well. So you do change. You'll find that you do change as you go on, and you'll leave the kind of operational issues can keep you up at night sometimes. You'll leave that. You need to leave that kind of chapter behind and actually think, I need to be demonstrating other strengths, other qualities in my BA guys. And then
I think at times it might just be that thing of taking a leap of faith and saying, I might not think I'm ready at the moment, but then there's a certain time when you'll never be ready because you'll always be holding back, won't you? Otherwise, saying, I know I'm good at this, but I'll just sit here in the corner and do what I'm good at, and I'll just shout a few times and say, why has it taken 2 hours for this message to come through? So I think sometimes you just need to
don't overthink it. Sometimes you want to go in head first, but don't overthink it. Sometimes I just go in feet first and let my head catch up. So
it's that thing about regret. Are you going to regret not doing something, or are you going to so that's been very helpful.
Thank you.
All the best to you, Hector.
Thank you. Appreciate you sharing that, Hector. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jack, so I've got a Millicent also has asked, put a question. I'm a student and I'm trying to think about the area I want to specialize into and how I can get the right people around me. And more about the mentorship, especially for women in tech. Any ideas on that can?
So I think when you're in studying education, I completely agree. It's very unclear what all the entry paths are. So again, going back to sort of going into those recruit conversations, don't wait until you've graduated to have those conversations. Recruiters are actually listening to students throughout the year. So if you want to start having and building a kind of a relationship with that recruiter to say, this is where I am in my studies, this is how it's going, actually I really enjoyed that module, that's really important, because you're then highlighting in a more kind of organic way what your interests are, and recruiters are in their kind of guise of expertise can really start to help and explain, based on what you're saying, your role could be aligned to kind of more in the service arena. It could be more sort of business analysts, as we've just talked about. There's lots of entry paths, and I think when I sort of was in education, I didn't see all the entry paths that were available as well, but there's many. And when you go on to sort of looking at the big organizations, they're looking at candidates who can go into very junior roles, but you could be a junior consultant, you know, you could be a junior business relationship manager, there's or sort of junior developer. There's lots of opportunities out there available, but I didn't see them. So when I left university, I went just hammering all the service desk roles that I could find, and that's not an issue either. That's actually a really good place to start, I've got to say, because I knew my strengths were to be more customer facing at that point, and build kind of interaction with customers, and then kind of dabble in what the systems side was as well. So actually that's not a bad start, because you actually get your foot into the door anyway. And being on a second line, third line help desk is incredible. You get to meet lots of different clients, lots of different people. Every day is definitely a different day. And then I got involved into release management as well. So that could have been another path really leading on from that, is how do organizations manage releases, like release packets, release updates. So change management, that's another really exciting area, because that you've really got to be switched on. How do you introduce changes outside of business as usual? Then you've got this constant demand, constant beat of change because of vulnerabilities on our estate, change because of regulatory change that's hitting us, change because of projects, change because of just patching. And that's a really exciting space as well. So that's kind of broadening. That's just started from service desk, that's gone into release management. There's a bit of project management, so there's kind of enhancements people are looking for. So then you can go, you know, into project management and working with organizations in how you enhance systems as well. Then going into testing. I've worked with a lot of testers as well to make sure that patches and fixes were kind of exactly what the customer outcome was meant to be. And then, like I said, change and release management is another really exciting area as well. So that's just from one conversation. I think as students, you know, your early career people and bodies, they are there. I didn't make as much sort of leverage the careers kind of advice that I think was out there. There's bags of it. So if you are in education, then reach out to those sort of career bodies as well. I think that's really important. Going back to all the offering BCS has on Eventbrite, if you follow the BCS on Eventbrite, you will see weekly. I see so many talks that spark my interest. I haven't got the time to attend, but they're all of interest to me. They might ignite, you know, what it is that you want to kind of explore further as well. So there's a few options there, like I said, but be proactive in kind of surfacing it as well, and looking at those opportunities as well. I would say Sophia Matrix that exists with the BCS. So the Sophia Matrix has got almost like industry standard roles. I think when you're a student, those roles are just titles. It might not mean much to you at that point. So I think for me, the best advice is start with this conversation, start with some learning and exploring all these free resources that are available as well.
Thanks, John. On the sort of, there's two questions here byAnud and Selvin. Again, they're looking for more on the lines of cyber security, cyber and data fields, quite specific, quite in terms of fields, quite important today as well. How can they get into that basically, again, as the question I asked before, you're lost. How do I get in? What do I find out? You know, whom do I approach and things like that?
Yeah. Is there anyone that wants to expand on that area a bit further, or come on camera and just have a conversation about it?
Selvin, would you like to explain a little bit about what you want?
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure this is working. Unfortunately, webcam's not working properly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
can hear you.
thank you for the conversation. And from what I can gather from what you said, Jack, it also sort of goes back into transferable skills. Since from what I was able to gather in my degree, I found that I seem to have a bit of a talent in analyzing situations that are shown to me, as I've been in a couple group projects, with one of them being something along the lines of giving a scenario to do an investigation case.
Yeah.
So in that situation, I helped the group by taking the scenario, highlighting important points, and then creating a mind map so that it's broken down into sections that the group can look into and work on different parts. And throughout my entirety, even in my undergrad degree, I've also noticed that unexpected circumstances can occur, as during the midst of COVID lockdowns, I had issues with an exam where my IDE for programming sort of broke down on me. So in that regard, I found that it's better to remain calm in the situation as well, which I believe could be considered a valuable skill. Otherwise, in that situation, I realized that panicking over it is just time being wasted. So rather than doing that, just go back into identify the source of the problem, redo everything from. I had to sort of redo the exam from scratch, but fortunately, it wasn't to a point where I lost the actual program I've written so far. So it's just a matter of rewriting everything, which was done much quicker. And the whole just looking into various events will also be advice I would take into heart, because I think I might have also signed up for a BCS event in August, but I have to check.
And what did you say? You're in pursuit of cyber? So your interests lie in cyber.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Though and while I do have at least some hands-on skills with certain tool sets during my degree, I do think that I might consider looking into maybe an apprenticeship. Though I do have to double check if it's still possible for me to do so while I'm.
Yeah, it is possible, but I think what could be even neater for you is the boot camp, because if you've done, was it a 3-year degree that you did?
It's a 3-year degree in computer science and a 1 year in the master's in cybersecurity. So I should sort of clarify that in the.
Fantastic. Okay. So what you could do, over summer or whenever these are available, is to maybe incorporate a boot camp as well, just to extend that kind of learning and experience. I know that's the key bit for me, is if you can try and make some sort of tangible connection to actually, which is difficult in cyber, I've got to say, because a lot of organisations won't let you in if you're not sort of doing a role with them. But yeah, it's difficult, I think, with cyber to how you gain that experience, to be fair. The other thing I was going to make, sort of a point I was going to make, is if you're quite active on LinkedIn, is to put your profile as open to work as well. So you never know what opportunities might come out of that. It's a really good feature on LinkedIn to say you're open to work, and then to be seen to be resharing content that's of interest to you. Then that assigns that label and identity to you, that you are interested in the world of cyber security, cyber analysis, cyber data as well. That's another way of making that connection as well. So no doubt you've got lots of recruiters on your LinkedIn and things like that as well. That's really powerful. And I know people have made career changes by purely saying open to work, and they've just given a synopsis that they've worked in this industry, but now they're looking. Well, they start with looking for what they're looking for, then they follow up. So your headline is what you're looking for, then you follow up with, this is my experience, this is what I feel like I can contribute to that role. So publicising is really important. Going back to the BCS membership side of things as well, lots of groups, lots of subject matter experts in the area, lots of contacts as well. And we know a large proportion of kind of like career journeys can start with who you know. So that's always another place to start and get your foot in as well. There's also a discussion board. So there's a jobs board, there's also a discussion board, and I know there's been a lot of topics and activity relating to cyber. So it could be within the BCS membership, guys, that you can join these talks, get to know people. It's a safe space to share your ideas and share your aspirations as well. I think you're building a lot of knowledge of what you know and what you want to learn, and obviously the masters is huge. Then I think that's that extra bit now of who you know, build up those contacts, build your identity for wanting to be known for, this is my vocation, this is my passion, this is what I want to do. And that can put you in good stead for what do we all want, that happy outcome of a role that we're passionate about, a role that we want to learn more in. And then it comes with all the other benefits and security that we need when it comes to having that role. And then you start to flourish in that role, start to learn. Always think about those links that you have with other areas of the business. Think about the customer impact to what you're doing. And as you learn, I think it's important then the next iteration is to share whatever you can do, given it's the sensitive nature of cyber, but share what you can. Share with others, your career journey, and hopefully inspire others to do the same that way as well.
Thank you. Right, we've got another. So the certainties wants to get into transition into the tech field, but has a learning disability, and says been through the industry and companies are maybe disability friendly. Most of the web and learning literature to learn computer programming are not accessibility friendly. Can you talk about the disparity and the changes that have been made in tech to solve this?
Yeah, I think that is important, and it can be stifling, and I can completely understand now, but it's hard. I think when I sort of looked into this area, accessibility, it's really important in technology, so it's great to be digitizing, but we're going to leave a community behind. And I think, can I relate to it? Yeah, I probably can, because I know that my parents or elders, during lockdown, when everything became digital and we were in, frankly, a cashless society, that was huge. That was a huge challenge for people who now had to suddenly do online shopping on their phone, had to QR codes became like the biggest thing ever. Every pub, every bar, QR code for menu, QR code for paying. That's huge. For people who've probably never even, attempted any online form of banking or anything, we're kind of stuck to, pre-COVID times, ways and means of being in their own, version of digital that was comfortable to them. And if that's visiting the bank, et cetera, or paying by cash. So digital's huge, that's having a massive impact across all people, and that sort of digital divide is very real. So yeah, going back to that point about accessibility and supporting people with impairments, absolutely, there should be loads. There should be a lot more being done in that area. To support yourself as well. I suppose it links into, understanding what are the tools and techniques out there that can support not only your learning, but then demonstrating that you've got the right sort of setup at home, and there's lots of tools out there, that can help depending on your kind of your needs, really. So I know for some people they much prefer like a dictate feature to going through documents or kind of dictating what their emailing or messaging should be. So there's drag and dictate, for example. There's somewhere sort of text is really difficult, so there's sort of Dolphin software, magnifier software out there that can help with any visual side of things. Grammarly is freeware as well. That's really good. I know for a lot of people who experience issues with you just generally sort of fatigue at doing the role when you've got that kind of maybe visual impairment as well. So yeah, so there are tools out there. So I'd say explore tools that make make learning easy for you, and then that will hopefully give you the confidence when it comes to job applications and things like that, you know, that an impairment then don't feel it's like you know, going to hold you back necessarily. You can present to that hiring manager to say that due to some of my sort of impairments, this is what I've uncovered, these are the sort of software and tools that will enable me to do my role. And then it's how that sort of hiring manager then has a kind of call to action then to engage with HR, engage with IT, and make sure that they've got relevant tooling available to help you do your role. So hopefully, you know, it doesn't stop you from applying, and doesn't stop you sort of putting yourself forward for roles at all. So, and ideally, when it comes to sort of how you articulate yourself on your CV, you know, your CV will speak volumes about you. And then if you can back that up on the interview, people can see how passionate you are, you know, finding the right company, finding the right people in the right company, it's important. So I would say, given, you know, disability, I'm not an expert, but disability acts and things like that, they can't not give you a role based on any impairment that you've got. But what they must do, and absolutely must do, when you're in role, give you all the tools, whether it's physical kit that you need, whether it's a software, hardware, software, whatever it is, for the ability for you to do your role at your best.
All right. Any more questions from the audience there? On these? None at the moment, Jack. But certainly, I think, you know, it's nice to understand that there's so many different tools out there, and I think, you know, it's for us to go and look for it as well, and not be afraid, I guess, isn't it? Of what you're saying, you know, there's loads of things like boot camps, hackathons, and when you did mention boot camps, and you think, oh, it's a lot of money, but then, like you said, if you look around, there might be things that are probably either free or relatively inexpensive, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of sort of debunking there that has to happen. It's sort of just, thank you. There's lots of government funded schemes out there, and you're not going to know if you're eligible if you don't try. And so you make your case, and then you'll see if you're eligible. But a lot of them that I've seen, you know, it's a simple process to go through. So my first thing is just to go have a look at what's out there, see what sparks your interest. Like I said, you could have been a BA, could have, like you said, worked in operations for so long, and there's other bits of e-learning or bootcamp or experience that you can gain outside of your vacation that can really put you in good stead for what your next step needs to be. Another free resource is literally just follow the BCS on LinkedIn. That's free. And LinkedIn BCS feed is constantly pushing out the latest and greatest when it comes to boot camps and apprenticeships as well, and all the changes that are out there. So you'll be ahead of the curve when you're getting it directly from the Chartered Institute on what's the latest happening with all these programs and offerings as well. And then you'll see, you know, who's commenting, who's on there. Then you'll start to see that there's people out there that can be contactable via LinkedIn. So use LinkedIn as that network route in if you don't feel financially viable right now to seek membership as well. I think eventually you will be guided to membership because there's a whole host of resources that are there, and people, like I said, that network piece, I can't fathom how you would network if you're a student and you're not part of a company yet. But start off with the resources that are connected to BCS, which is LinkedIn and Eventbrite. I think those two have been really fundamental to my learning as well.
You mentioned earlier on, Jag, in the talk about, I think it was part of the, obviously, this careers, a BCS, and you mentioned a link. Do you have that link, BCS careers, or do they just go to BCS and then try to look for early careers?
So there was an email address that you can just use to contact the BCS with any general questions. and that is groups@bcs.org. I want to say. I think that's what it is.
No, yeah.
Double check. I will double check. I want to get it right because this is being recorded. So I'll get in trouble. Email groups@bcs.uk. Yeah. So you can email that with anything, and then that will get directed to people who can help and support as well. Like I said, there's the LinkedIn pages, there's Twitter, YouTube, there's Instagram as well, @BCS. And again, that's a really good place to start when you see who's following BCS, and you'll see a lot of apprenticeship and training bodies, training organisations that are either being followed by the BCS or they're following. So again, it helps you build those connections. So yeah, that's another, again, that's no cost at all to be following them on these channels and these routes as well. So
great. Okay, I guess a big thank you to you, Jag. It's very helpful. A lot of information for us and everyone who has joined. And I wish everyone the very best in terms of looking for their new roles and moving on as well. So well done. All the best on that. And certainly again, Jag, thank you very much. And